July 3, 1943. Prokhorovka, Soviet Russia. Major General Pavel Rotmistrov spread German reconnaissance photographs across his field table, and for the first time in 2 years of war, he felt something close to relief. German intelligence reports showed images of the enemy's newest tank, the Panzer VI Tiger I, massive, slow, mechanically overcomplicated. 88mm gun borrowed from anti-aircraft batteries, armor so thick it could barely move, fuel consumption that would strand it after 50 kilometers. Another German engineering failure, attempting to compensate for declining troop quality with excessive steel. Our T-34s will run circles around them, he told his staff. Speed defeats armor. Maneuverability defeats guns. 2 years of combat have proven this. Through his command tent flaps, he could see his 5th Guards Tank Army, 850 T-34 medium tanks, battle-tested, crewed by veterans, positioned for the greatest tank battle in history. For 2 years, these tanks had smashed German Panzer IIIs and IVs, reversed the tide at Moscow and Stalingrad, driven the Wehrmacht from Soviet soil meter by bloody meter. This Tiger, this overweight German desperation machine, would be no different. What Rotmistrov didn't know, what none of the Soviet tank commanders preparing for Operation Citadel knew, was that in exactly 9 days, this engineering failure would begin the systematic annihilation of Soviet armor doctrine. The Tiger I would achieve kill ratios of 10-to-1 in its first week, destroy over 3,000 Soviet tanks during the Kursk offensive, and prove that the T-34's reign of superiority had been built on facing inferior opponents. The mathematics of armored warfare were about to be rewritten by a tank that looked too slow, weighed too much, and seemed to violate every principle the Soviets had perfected. Yet within 2 weeks, the very commanders now planning T-34 mass charges would be ordering retreat, knowing that encountering Tigers meant mathematical certainty of battalion annihilation. The steel-tied zenith. Soviet confidence in July 1943 wasn't delusion. It was mathematics written in destroyed German tanks. Since December 1941, the T-34 medium tank had achieved victory ratios that redefined armored warfare. At Moscow, Soviet tank brigades had stopped the Wehrmacht's winter offensive, destroying 2,000 German armored vehicles while losing 4,000 of their own. But Soviet production was pumping out 1,200 T-34s monthly. Germany couldn't match those numbers. At Stalingrad, T-34s had encircled an entire German army. The Germans lost 900 tanks and assault guns. The Soviets lost 2,900. But the Soviets could afford it. At the center of this numerical dominance rolled the T-34, an engineering miracle born from brutal pragmatism. When captured examples were tested by German engineers at Kummersdorf in 1942, they filed reports recommending immediate copying of its sloped armor and Christie suspension. An armored vehicle that combines the firepower of a medium tank, the mobility of a light tank, and the protection that defeats our 50mm guns, the Kummersdorf report stated. It should not exist according to our engineering principles, yet it dominates the battlefield. Colonel Mikhail Katakov, who would become Marshal of Tank Forces, described the T-34 in his memoirs. The T-34 is Soviet warfare incarnate. Crude but functional. Simple but deadly. Built by tractor factories, crewed by farmers, maintained with hammers. But it moves fast, hits hard, and when one dies, 3 more appear. German tanks are mechanical art. Ours are mechanical brutality. They build quality. We build quantity. In a long war, we win. The T-34 achieved its dominance through revolutionary pragmatism. Sloped armor that deflected German 50mm and 75mm rounds. Wide tracks that crossed mud and snow German tanks couldn't traverse. A diesel V2 engine that didn't explode from tracer rounds like German gasoline engines. And the Christie suspension that maintained 35 miles per hour cross-country speed. The tank was loud, uncomfortable, cramped. Soviet tankers called it the coffin. German tankers called it the menace. The intelligence dismissal. The first reports of the Tiger I reached Soviet intelligence through partisan networks in early 1943. The specifications seemed like propaganda, or perhaps German disinformation. The tank weighed 54 tons. The T-34 weighed 26 tons. Its armor measured 100 mm frontal. The T-34's sloped 45 mm armor was rated equivalent to 90 mm. It carried only 92 rounds of main gun ammunition. The T-34 carried 77 rounds but fired faster. It consumed 280 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers. The T-34 consumed 180 liters. It cost 250,000 Reichsmarks. A T-34 cost 193,000 rubles, roughly 30,000 Reichsmarks. Lieutenant General Nikolai Fedorovich Vatutin, commander of Voronezh Front, reviewed the specifications at Kursk headquarters. His analysis, preserved in Soviet military archives, was dismissive. The Germans have learned nothing from 2 years of defeat. This Tiger represents Germanic engineering arrogance, attempting to overcome Soviet industrial might with individual superiority. A T-34 will penetrate its flanks. 10 T-34s will surround and destroy it. 100 T-34s will overrun any Tiger formation before they reload. The mathematics seem to support his assessment. The T-34's 76 mm gun fired 8 to 10 rounds per minute with a skilled crew. The Tiger's 88 mm gun fired 6 to 8 rounds per minute. In a close-range swirling tank battle, the basis of all Soviet tank tactics, the Tiger would be overwhelmed by numbers before its armor advantage mattered. The first glimpse. July 5, 1943, 0430 hours. Northern Kursk salient. Captain Alexander Fyodorov commanded a T-34 battalion in the 6th Tank Corps, positioned in defensive lines near Panayrai. His mission, counterattack any German penetration. At dawn, through his periscope, he saw them. 11 dark gray shapes moving in line formation across the ridge 2 kilometers distant. His first thought, recorded in his after-action report, Ferdinand assault guns. Large, but we've defeated them before. Then they turned hull forward, and he saw the distinctive silhouette. Long-barreled 88 mm gun. Overlapping road wheels. Angular turret. Cupola with periscopes. First encounter with Tiger heavy tank, he would write. Initial impression, Germans have mounted a battleship gun on a locomotive. Engaged with standard tactics, flank attack at high speed. Standard tactics meant using the T-34's superior speed to circle the slower Tiger, hitting its weaker side and rear armor. Fyodorov ordered his battalion, 22 T-34s, to execute a flanking maneuver at full speed. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The Tigers didn't retreat to protect their flanks. They didn't form a defensive circle. They stopped, pulled down behind the ridge, and opened fire at 2,000 meters. The Tiger fired at 2,000 meters, Fyodorov reported. A range we considered safe. Our doctrine stated German tanks couldn't penetrate T-34 armor beyond 800 meters. The first round struck Lieutenant Pavlov's tank in the frontal glacis. The armor didn't deflect the shell. It punched through like paper. The tank exploded, turret separating from the hull. Before we could react, 5 more T-34s were burning. Fyodorov ordered a retreat. The Tigers didn't pursue. They didn't need to. From their hull-down positions, they continued firing. At 1,800 meters. At 2,200 meters. At ranges Soviet tankers had believed were safe, Tiger rounds penetrated T-34 armor with casual certainty. Fyodorov survived, bringing 4 tanks back to Soviet lines. 18 T-34s burned in the field. The Tigers hadn't moved. Not one Tiger was lost. First blood to the Tiger, written in 18 funeral pyres. The Armor Paradox. July 6, 1943. The Soviet 3rd Mechanized Corps committed 200 T-34s and 70 T-70 light tanks to a counterattack near Oboyan. German intelligence identified a company of 9 Tigers from the 505th Heavy Panzer Battalion blocking the axis of advance. Colonel Ivan Karchenko led the assault personally. "We climbed to attack positions in the pre-dawn darkness," Karchenko recorded in his journal. "Below us, 9 Tigers in defensive positions. We held every advantage. Numbers, surprise, initiative. Victory was certain." The engagement that followed shattered Soviet tank doctrine. As the T-34s charged down the slope at maximum speed, the Tigers didn't panic or retreat. They maintained formation, each Tiger covering sectors of fire with overlapping fields. When the T-34s opened fire at 1,200 meters, hoping to disable the Tigers with massed fire, the German armor simply absorbed the punishment. The Tigers' frontal armor, 100 mm of flat plate backed by 60 mm at angles, could withstand T-34 76 mm rounds at any range beyond 500 meters. From the front, the T-34 couldn't hurt it. As the T-34s closed to effective range, the Tigers executed their counterattack. The 88 mm KWK-36 gun, derived from the legendary Flak 88 anti-aircraft gun, fired armor-piercing rounds weighing 10.2 kilograms at 810 meters per second. At 1,500 meters, these rounds delivered 132 millimeters of penetration. The T-34's armor, even at its thickest sloped point, couldn't stop them. "They destroyed us methodically," Karchenko wrote. One Tiger would fire, destroying a T-34. Before we could identify the shooter, another Tiger would fire from a different position. They moved between shots, reversing behind cover, repositioning. We couldn't fix their locations. They knew where we were at all times. The radio intercept advantage. German Tigers were equipped with FUG-5 radio transceivers. Every tank could communicate with every other tank and with battalion command. Soviet T-34s in 1943 had radios only in company command tanks. Individual tank commanders communicated with flags. The Tigers were fighting as a networked system. The T-34s were fighting as individuals. Karchenko's counterattack lasted 40 minutes. 127 Soviet tanks were destroyed. 9 Tigers returned to German lines. 1 Tiger was damaged, repaired within 2 hours. The Prokhorovka Prophecy. July 10, 1943. Rotmistrov's 5th Guards Tank Army Headquarters. Assembled tank commanders listened as Lieutenant Colonel Andrei Smirnov briefed them on German tactics. Smirnov, with 3 Tiger encounters survived, was one of the few Soviet officers who understood what they faced. "Forget everything you know about tank combat," he told them. "The Germans have changed the rules. The Tiger doesn't fight our fight. It fights like artillery with armor." Smirnov explained what Soviet tankers were learning through blood. The Tiger wasn't designed to brawl at close range. It was designed to never need to. Using a combat doctrine called standoff engagement, Tiger crews maintained distance, using superior optics and gun range to destroy Soviet tanks before the T-34s could close to effective firing distance. "They engage at 2,000 meters, Smirnov continued. "Our 76 mm guns can't penetrate them beyond 500 meters frontally. To kill a Tiger, we must close to 200 meters and hit the sides or rear. But to close from 2,000 meters to 200 meters, we must cross 1,800 meters of open ground while they fire every 6 seconds. The mathematics are not favorable. The technology gulf." July 11, 1943. Soviet technical intelligence officers examined a Tiger captured after its crew abandoned it due to mechanical breakdown. Their inspection revealed the growing technology gap. The firepower disparity was mathematical. The Tiger's 88 mm KWK-36 gun fired rounds with 9,800 joules of muzzle energy, achieving 132 mm penetration at 1,500 meters. The T-34's 76 mm T-34 gun delivered 2,600 joules, achieving 61 mm penetration at 1,500 meters. Against the Tiger's frontal armor, the T-34's gun was ineffective beyond point-blank range. More disturbing were the optics. The Tiger's Termzielfernrohr 9B telescopic sight provided 2.5 times magnification with a precise reticle for range estimation. The T-34's PT-4-7 sight provided 2.5 times magnification but with inferior optics and poor light transmission. German tank commanders could identify targets in conditions where Soviet tankers saw only blurs. Senior Lieutenant Dmitry Lavrenenko described his first Tiger engagement: "We were moving through woods when we took fire. 3 tanks destroyed instantly. We couldn't see the enemy. Smoke, shadows, distance. We fired at muzzle flashes. Later, we found the Tigers had engaged us from 1,600 meters. They could see us clearly. We were firing blind." The crew equation. July 1943. The Soviet crew crisis was becoming catastrophic. The pre-war Soviet tank training program had produced competent crews through 6 months of intensive training. Drivers learned to handle the T-34's difficult clutch and transmission. Gunners practiced range-finding and shot placement. Commanders studied tactics. By mid-1943, Soviet tank crews were entering combat with 6 weeks of training. Many had never fired live ammunition before their first battle. Fuel and ammunition shortages meant most training was done with classroom instruction and dummy rounds. Gunnery practice was limited to 10 shells per gunner. Radio operation, mechanical maintenance, tactical coordination, all eliminated to rush crews to the front. Meanwhile, German Tiger crews trained for months. They fired hundreds of practice rounds. They learned to estimate range with precision. They practiced coordinated movements until they were instinctive. Lieutenant Colonel Vasily Brukhoff, training commander at the Kazan Tank School, wrote in his report, "We are sending boys to fight professionals." Yesterday, a crew arrived at the front. The driver had never driven a T-34 in mud. The gunner had never engaged a moving target. The commander had never used a radio. They lasted 12 minutes in their first battle. The Prokhorovka Revelation. July 12, 1943. The Battle of Prokhorovka. Rotmistrov committed everything to stop the German advance at Kursk. Over 800 tanks and self-propelled guns, including 616 T-34s, the finest Soviet armor available. The Germans had approximately 180 tanks, including only 15 Tigers from the Leibstandard SS Adolf Hitler Division. The Soviets claimed spectacular victory. 400 German tanks destroyed. The German advance halted. Stalin declared Prokhorovka the turning point of the war. The reality, discovered only after post-war examination of German records, was more complex. Actual German tank losses at Prokhorovka, approximately 40 to 50 tanks, with 5 Tigers destroyed. Soviet losses, over 300 T-34s and 200 other armored vehicles. The Soviet human wave tactics, designed to overwhelm German positions through mass, had met a defensive system designed to slaughter mass attacks. Colonel Grigory Panesko, who commanded the 32nd Tank Brigade in the battle, described the slaughter in his post-war memoir. The Tigers were positioned hull down on the ridges. We charged across open ground. They fired, reloaded, fired again. Every shot killed a tank. Our return fire bounced off their armor like rain. We kept advancing because stopping meant death. Advancing also meant death, but at least we died moving forward. The Tiger Kill. July 12, 1943, 1,430 hours. Prokhorovka. Senior Lieutenant Vladimir Bochkovsky commanded a company of T-34s in the 181st Tank Brigade. In the confusion of the massive armored battle, his company of 7 tanks maneuvered into a position that Soviet tankers dreamed of, 300 meters behind a Tiger, stationary, its crew apparently reloading. I ordered all tanks to fire simultaneously at the engine deck, Bochkovsky reported. 7 76mm rounds struck within 2 seconds. The Tiger's rear armor, only 80mm, couldn't withstand the concentrated fire. Flames erupted from the engine compartment. The crew bailed out. We had killed a Tiger. This engagement demonstrated the T-34's only effective tactic against Tigers: close to point-blank range, hit the vulnerable rear or sides, achieve local numerical superiority. But the cost was horrific. To kill one Tiger, Bochkovsky's company had lost 4 T-34s approaching the target. And there were only 15 Tigers at Prokhorovka. There were 616 T-34s. The kill ratio was 1 Tiger for 20 to 40 T-34s. Psychologically sustainable. Strategically ruinous. The psychological collapse. The aftermath of Prokhorovka produced what Soviet tank crews called Tiger panic. Simply seeing a Tiger silhouette caused some crews to abandon their tanks and flee. Rotmistrov, in his classified after-action report to Stalin, wrote, "The enemy's Tiger tank has achieved psychological impact disproportionate to its numbers. Our tankers, veterans of 2 years of combat, experienced soldiers who defeated German armor at Moscow and Stalingrad, now hesitate when encountering Tigers. This hesitation is fatal. The German radio coordination and superior optics create an impression of omniscience. They see everything. They hit everything. Our crews feel not that they are fighting tanks, but that they are fighting a system they cannot comprehend." The crew shortage became so acute that by autumn 1943, many T-34s were crewed by factory workers with 2 weeks of training. Tankers joked bitterly, "The Germans need 6 months to train a Tiger crew. We need 6 days to train a T-34 crew." The difference is the Tiger crew survives long enough to use their training. The Dnieper decimation. August to September 1943. As the Germans retreated from Kursk, Soviet tank armies pursued. The running battles along the Dnieper River became killing grounds for T-34s. Lieutenant General Dmitry Lelyashenko's 3rd Guards Tank Army, which began the pursuit with 350 T-34s, ended September with 89 operational tanks. German records show 18 Tigers operating in the sector during this period. The Soviets claim to have destroyed 47 Tigers. German loss records show 3 Tigers destroyed, 7 damaged and recovered, 8 broken down and abandoned during retreat. The mathematical reality: 18 Tigers had destroyed or disabled over 260 Soviet tanks while losing 3 of their own. An 86-to-1 exchange ratio. Captain Ivan Yakubovsky, who would later become Marshal of the Soviet Union, described the Dnieper fighting: "We developed what we called the Tiger Hunt. 10 T-34s would maneuver to surround a single Tiger. 3 or 4 tanks would be destroyed in the approach. The survivors would close to point-blank range, 100 meters or less, and fire at the tracks and rear. If we immobilized the Tiger, we could destroy it. If we didn't immobilize it quickly, the Tiger would reverse, repositioning, and destroy the remaining tanks. We traded 4 or 5 T-34s for each Tiger killed." Stalin considered this acceptable. The crews of those 4 or 5 tanks did not. The technology chasm. By late 1943, the technological gap was unbridgeable with existing Soviet equipment. The Tiger incorporated improvements based on combat experience. The T-34 remained essentially unchanged from 1941, except for battlefield expedient modifications. Tiger crews received upgraded ammunition. The Panzergranate 40 tungsten cord round, introduced in August 1943, increased penetration to 156 mm at 1,500 meters. It could penetrate any Soviet tank from any angle at any combat range. T-34 crews received no upgraded ammunition. Their 76 mm rounds remained inadequate against Tigers. Major Alexander Bodner, a technical intelligence officer, tested captured German ammunition against a T-34. "We fired 1 Panzergranate 40 at a T-34 hull from 2,000 meters. The round penetrated the frontal glacis, exited through the rear hull, and buried itself 2 meters into the earth berm behind the target. The round passed through 75 millimeters of sloped armor as if it weren't there. Our tank offered no protection against this ammunition. The human cost accounting. By January 1944, the Tiger I had destroyed an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 Soviet tanks in 7 months of combat. Approximately 130 Tigers had been lost to all causes, including mechanical breakdown, abandonment, and Soviet artillery. The kill ratio varied by engagement, at Kursk, approximately 10 to 1. During the Dnieper fighting, 86 to 1. Overall Eastern Front 1943, estimated 25 to 1. The human cost for the Soviet Union was staggering. Each destroyed T-34 meant 4 to 5 crewmen killed or wounded. 3,000 destroyed T-34s meant 12,000 to 15,000 Soviet tankers killed. The Germans lost approximately 500 to 650 Tiger crewmen killed in the same period. The production equation. Yet the Tiger's tactical dominance couldn't overcome Soviet industrial might. In 1943, the Soviet Union produced 15,812 T-34 tanks. Germany produced 1,347 Tigers in the entire war, with 649 produced in 1943. The Soviets could afford to trade 25 T-34s for 1 Tiger. The Germans could build 1 Tiger for every 25 T-34s destroyed. The mathematics favored the Soviets. Colonel General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Forces, understood the futility. Each Tiger is a tactical masterpiece and a strategic failure. We destroy 20 Soviet tanks and feel victorious. The Soviets build 40 more and attack again. We are winning every battle and losing the war. The T-34-85 response. January 1944. The Soviet Union introduced the T-34-85, mounting an 85mm gun that could penetrate Tiger armor at 1,000 meters from the frontal aspect. The technical gap narrowed. But even the T-34-85 was inferior to the Tiger in armor protection, optics quality, crew ergonomics, and radio equipment. What the T-34-85 provided was adequate, good enough to engage Tigers with reasonable chance of survival. Not superiority. Adequacy. Lieutenant Alexander Oskin, commanding a T-34-85, achieved the only recorded instance of a single T-34 destroying 3 Tigers in one engagement. On August 13, 1944, near Stasso, Poland, Oskin's tank ambushed 3 Tigers from the 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion at close range, destroying all 3 by hitting ammunition storage and fuel tanks. He received the Hero of the Soviet Union medal. His achievement was celebrated precisely because it was so rare. 1 T-34 killing 3 Tigers was newsworthy because the expected outcome was 3 Tigers killing 20 T-34s. The final testimony. May 2, 1945. Berlin. As Soviet forces captured the Reichstag, the last Tigers fought to destruction in the rubble. Of 1,347 Tigers produced, fewer than 20 remained operational. Major General Rotmistrov, now commanding armored forces in the assault on Berlin, encountered a destroyed Tiger near the Brandenburg Gate. He ordered his driver to stop. For several minutes, he studied the massive tank, this machine that had killed so many of his soldiers. Then he climbed onto its hull and looked inside through the open turret hatch. The interior was spacious, well organized, with quality instruments and controls. Everything the T-34 wasn't. This tank, he told his aide, was better than ours in almost every way. Better armor. Better gun. Better optics. Better ergonomics. If Germany had built 10,000 of these instead of 1,347, we would have lost the war. His aide asked, "Then how did we win?" Rotmistrov answered, "We built 57,000 T-34s. They built 1,347 Tigers. They made perfect tanks. We made enough tanks. In war, enough defeats perfect." The occupation revelation. May 1945. Kubinka tank proving grounds, Soviet Union. Soviet engineers tested captured Tigers exhaustively. Their conclusion was devastating. The Tiger represents engineering we cannot match, the Kubinka report stated. Its transmission contains precision components requiring manufacturing tolerances we cannot achieve. Its optics use glass quality we cannot produce. Its fire control system requires electrical components we cannot reliably manufacture. The Tiger is not a tank. It is an automotive engineering demonstration that Germany used its finest peacetime manufacturing capabilities to build. The T-34 is a tank. It is an automotive compromise that we used our wartime expedient manufacturing to build. One is superior. The other one. Professor Mikhail Svirin, examining Tiger components, concluded, each Tiger required 300,000 man-hours to manufacture. Each T-34 required 3,000 man-hours. We built 19 T-34s in the time Germany built one Tiger. We lost 10 T-34s destroying each Tiger, and still had 9 tanks remaining. This is why we won. The strategic revolution. The Tiger didn't just lose battles. It revealed the futility of tactical excellence without strategic sustainability. Pre-war German doctrine assumed quality would triumph over quantity. The Tiger proved quality could achieve spectacular tactical success. But spectacular tactical success meant nothing when the enemy could replace losses 10 times faster than you could inflict them. Marshal Georgy Zhukov understood this transformation. The Tiger taught us that we cannot match German quality. But it taught the Germans that quality without quantity is merely expensive defeat. They built the perfect tank. We built the winning army. The cultural collision. Beyond technology, the Tiger represented a cultural philosophy that invalidated itself through its own excellence. German engineering tradition emphasized precision, craftsmanship, and individual superiority. The Tiger embodied this perfectly. Soviet manufacturing philosophy emphasized adequacy, mass production, and systemic superiority. The T-34 embodied this adequately. This philosophical gulf meant German engineers couldn't design for mass production even when they understood its necessity. The Tiger II, introduced in 1944, was even more capable than the Tiger I, and even harder to produce. Germany built 492 Tiger IIs. Meanwhile, T-34 production continued increasing. The judgment of history. In 1975, at a Soviet-German military history conference, Soviet and German veterans discussed the Tiger versus T-34. Colonel General Rotmistrov, retired, stated, the Tiger was the better tank. The T-34 was the better weapon. There is a difference. We understood this difference in 1943. The Germans never understood it, even in 1945. Otto Carius, German Tiger ace with 150-plus tank kills, responded, we knew the T-34 was crude. We knew it was inferior in almost every measurable way. But there were always more. Always. We could destroy 10, 20, 30. It didn't matter. More appeared. We joked that Soviet factories built T-34s faster than we could destroy them. It wasn't a joke. It was the truth that defeated us. The ultimate reckoning. The Tiger's tactical excellence can be reduced to simple mathematics that tell a profound story. Kill ratio, 25-1 overall against all Soviet armor. Tigers produced, 1,347 total. T-34s produced 1940 to 1945, 57,000 approximately. Tigers operational in May 1945, fewer than 20. T-34s operational in May 1945, over 25,000. General Ferdinand Schorner, who commanded German forces on the Eastern Front, provided perhaps the most honest assessment. We laughed at the T-34 because it was crude, uncomfortable, mechanically unsophisticated. By the time we stopped laughing, Berlin was burning and Tigers were museum pieces. The T-34 didn't need to be perfect. It needed to be good enough, and numerous enough. It was both. We built masterpieces. They built war winners. The last word. Major General Pavel Rotmistrov lived until 1982. In his final interview, he was asked about the Tiger. His response captured the totality of the war's lesson: the Tiger made Germany believe quality would defeat quantity. The T-34 proved that belief was fatal. Every German victory achieved by Tigers was tactical. Every Soviet attack absorbing Tiger kills was strategic. By 1945, Germany had the world's best tank and no fuel, no crews, no factories, and no hope. We had 25,000 adequate tanks in Berlin. That is the ultimate judgment. The superior tank lost. The adequate tank won. The Tiger I entered service weighing twice what the T-34 weighed, carrying armor the T-34 couldn't penetrate, mounting a gun the T-34 couldn't match, crewed by soldiers the Soviets couldn't equal in training, and produced in numbers the Germans couldn't sustain. Soviet commanders had mocked it because they didn't understand that tactical superiority without strategic sustainability is merely a slower way to lose. By the time they understood, 15,000 Soviet tankers were dead, their confidence replaced by hard mathematics, their doctrine rewritten in blood. But the Soviet Union could absorb those losses. Germany could not. The Tiger hadn't just failed to stop the T-34. It had revealed that in industrial total war, the nation that builds adequate weapons in massive quantities will destroy the nation that builds perfect weapons in inadequate quantities. German engineers had mocked the T-34's crudeness. The T-34 had the last word. It was parked in Berlin.